Final narration script, English version. Imagine waking up every day believing that the sun might not return tomorrow, and that if it fails, your entire civilization disappears. The Aztecs lived with this real fear, and the only way to prevent the end of the world was to spill human blood. Not out of evil, but out of panic, out of survival. This is the story of the darkest ritual of the Aztec Empire, where humanity's very existence depended on a daily payment made atop blood-stained pyramids. And you're about to understand why they believed this with every fiber of their being. To understand the terror that moved the Aztecs, you need to understand one thing. They didn't think the world was eternal. In Aztec cosmology, the universe had already been destroyed 4 times before. 4 previous suns, 4 complete eras of existence, all annihilated. The first sun was devoured by jaguars, the second swept away by hurricanes, the third consumed by rains of fire, the fourth drowned by catastrophic floods. And they lived in the 5th sun, the last one, the sun called Tonatiuh. But this sun wasn't eternal, it was fragile, vulnerable. It needed to be constantly fed, or it would die. And when the gods created this 5th sun, they themselves had to sacrifice themselves. They threw themselves into the cosmic fire so that light could exist again. So humanity wasn't just grateful, it was indebted. Every human being was born with a cosmic debt, and payment of this debt was literal, blood. For us, this seems like madness. For them, it was the law of nature. It was science. It was religion. It was the only way to prevent the end of reality. But who paid this price? How? And why did the entire population accept this? Let's find out. The Aztecs didn't see the sun as a distant object in the sky. They saw the sun as a warrior who fought a daily battle against the forces of darkness. Every night, Tonatiuh descended into the underworld. There he faced monsters, demons, and death itself. And he could only win this battle if he had enough strength. Strength that came from human blood. Without this fuel, the sun would weaken. It would stop halfway and would never rise again. And then, imagine the terror. You wake up in the morning, look at the horizon, and the sky remains black. Without sun, there's no heat, no harvests, no life. The world would plunge into eternal night. The monsters of the underworld would rise to the surface, and humanity would be exterminated. This wasn't an abstract fear. It was visceral, real. They saw the sun weaken on cloudy days. They saw eclipses, and they interpreted all of this as signs that the cosmic warrior was losing the battle. If the sun didn't rise, humanity would die. And the priests constantly warned, it only rises if it's fed. And here's the crucial point. For the Aztecs, this wasn't superstition. It was physics. It was cosmic biology. It was how the universe worked. But what made human blood so special?
In Aztec philosophy, human blood carried something called tonali, vital energy, the essence of life. It wasn't just a liquid, it was concentrated cosmic force. And the gods had given their own blood to create humanity, so it was a fair exchange, an ancestral debt being paid. Blood wasn't punishment, it was payment. Each drop a guarantee that the sun would see another dawn. And here's something many people don't understand. The Aztecs didn't see sacrifice as something cruel. They saw it as something sacred, noble, necessary. Warriors who were captured in battle and taken for sacrifice weren't seen as victims. They were considered messengers to the gods. Their destiny was glorious. And the families who offered their own children for certain rituals, they were honored. Their children would become part of the cosmos. They would feed the sun. They would sustain reality. Of course, not everyone went voluntarily. But the social, religious, and political structure created deep acceptance because everyone believed the same thing. Either we do this or the world ends. And how did they perform this ritual? What was it actually like, the moment when blood was offered? Prepare yourself, because this part is intense. Let's put you inside this moment. It's dawn. Darkness still dominates Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, one of the largest cities in the world at the time. Thousands of people gather around the Templo Mayor, the central pyramid. The air is heavy. No one speaks. You only hear the wind and the torches crackling. At the top of the pyramid, the priests are already positioned, dressed in black robes stained with red. Some wear skull masks, others skins of sacred animals. And beside them, tied to the sacrificial stone, is the chosen one. He could be an enemy warrior captured in battle. He could be a slave. He could be, in rare cases, a young man from the city itself, offered voluntarily. He's lying on his back. 4 priests hold his arms and legs. A 5th priest approaches with an obsidian blade, volcanic glass sharp as a scalpel. The sky is still dark, but there's a faint glow on the horizon. The critical moment is near. The priest raises the blade, and with a quick, precise movement, he cuts the chest, opens the ribcage, and tears out the still beating heart. He raises the heart to the sky. Blood runs down the pyramid steps, and the crowd below follows the blood with their eyes, seeing it descend like a crimson river. At this moment, everyone looks at the horizon. The sun is taking too long. Seconds feel like hours. The fear is palpable. What if it doesn't work? What if the blood isn't enough? What if the sun doesn't return? And then, a golden line appears on the horizon. The sun begins to rise. The crowd explodes in screams, tears, relief, despair transformed into joy. They did it! They saved the world! For one more day! And when the first light touched the top of the temple, the people celebrated with desperation. They believed they had saved the world for one more day. But you might be thinking, did they really believe this? Or was it just manipulation? Let's talk about that now.
Here's the complex truth. Yes, the Aztecs deeply believed in the myth. But the leaders also used this fear to maintain power. The sacrifices served much more than appeasing the gods. First, they united the people. When thousands of people witnessed the same ritual, felt the same terror, and celebrated the same relief, it created a powerful collective identity. Second, they justified wars. The Aztecs didn't wage wars just to conquer territory. They waged flower wars, ritualized conflicts with the goal of capturing living enemies for sacrifice. Without prisoners, there were no offerings. Without offerings, there was no sun. So war became necessary for cosmic survival. Third, they maintained religious and social order. The priests were the only ones who knew when and how to perform the rituals. This gave them immense power. They were the guardians of reality. To challenge them was to challenge the universe itself. And fourth, sacrifice was seen as the highest honor. Aztec warriors didn't fear death in battle. They feared dying of old age or disease, because that meant their life hadn't been offered to the gods. To die in the temple, feeding the sun, that was eternal glory. Today, we call it barbarism. For them, it was the pillar that sustained reality. And here's the most disturbing point. If you had been born in that culture, grown up hearing these stories, seeing these rituals since childhood, you probably would have believed it too, because culture shapes our perception of reality. And for the Aztecs, sacrifice wasn't optional. It was cosmic physics. But what if the sun didn't appear? Did that almost happen at some point? The truth is, we'll never know if the Aztecs ever witnessed a day when the sun took so long that panic completely set in. But we know they lived in constant tension. Every eclipse was interpreted as a direct attack on the sun. Every prolonged storm, a sign of cosmic weakness, and the sacrifices increased. In times of crisis, droughts, epidemics, military defeats, the rituals intensified. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of people were offered in a single day, because fear grew. And when fear grows, logic becomes distorted. If the sun is weakening, we need more blood. If the sun hasn't fully returned to strength, we need to sacrifice more. Always more. And then in 1521, something happened that the Aztecs never imagined possible. The sun kept rising, but the empire fell. The Spanish, led by Hernán Cortés, conquered Tenochtitlan. They destroyed the temples, they banned the rituals, and they forced a new religion upon the survivors. And the sun? It kept rising, every day. For the conquerors, this was proof that the Aztecs were wrong, that sacrifice was unnecessary, that it was just barbarism. But for the surviving Aztecs, perhaps it was different. Perhaps they looked at the sky and thought, did the gods abandon us, or did they find another way to be fed? Because fear doesn't disappear easily, even when logic changes. And here's the final reflection. The Aztec Empire didn't sacrifice out of cruelty. It sacrificed out of fear, out of faith, out of a debt they believed they owed to the gods who created the world. They lived believing that humanity was always one sunrise away from destruction. And if you had grown up in that world, perhaps you too would have offered blood so the sun would return. Because in the end, we all do extreme things when we believe survival is at stake. The difference is that today, our fears are different. But the instinct to do anything to prevent the end, that instinct is still alive. If this video made you travel into this dark story, leave a like and comment below what you thought. These videos take a lot of work to research, write, and produce, so your interaction helps keep the channel alive. And if you want more stories like this, forgotten rituals, mysterious cultures, obscure truths of human history, subscribe and turn on notifications, because there's a lot more obscure truth coming ahead. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.